So welcome to our channel Electronics on Wheel and thank you for support. Please like, subscribe and comment if you like the content of this channel. So today we have one question: how to select the fuse in wiring harness or in car or in any vehicle. So on this particular topic we have already created many videos, but still we had many question on this particular topic, so we have taken one more video on this. So one particular question asked by Siddhesh that if we take 60 watt of headlights, then how much fuse rating should be selected and what is the mathematical calculation? We will take this question. What is the fuse rating for the 3.2 kilowatt of motor, which is asked by Karan? So we will take this as well. What is the difference between high beam and low beam fuse rating or fuse values, whether they are same or something different? We will take this as well. Then one interesting question: why fuse selection rating is 125% of rated current? Why not different? And then one more question asked by Oleg, that one of the videos we have told that combination switch takes like 3 amps. We have just given one example like 3 amps of current is taking one particular combination switch. So why you are using the 5 amps of fuse to protect the combination switch when this receives only 3 amps of maximum current as you stated in the video? So these two things are related to each other. We will discuss in detail in further. So we will take all these questions in the last of this video. First, let me tell you about something related how to select the fuse and what are the major factors to consider. So first thing is normal operating current of that particular components. So on what operating current that particular component is working, what is the operating voltage, that is also need to be considered, and the system voltage you can say. So whether you are working for the 12-volt system or the 24-volt system, that also need to be depend. So in generally in cars we work on the 12-volt system, but on CV vehicles, commercial vehicle, we works on the 24-volt system. So these things need to be decided, and how that particular component is working, that need to be decided. Then maximum ambient temperature. So why it requires, as you know, the temperature increases, then uh, your resistance will be decreases, and your R is equals to 1 plus alpha into t. So sorry, one mistake. So if resistance, if your temperature is increasing, your resistance is also increases, right? If resistance is increasing, then current will be decrease, right? So that factor also comes into the picture when you are selecting your fuse. Then short circuit currents also then allow able I square t. So I square t is not nothing but the heating factor, which is related to your resistance and then temperature and all current related to current. Then inverse current is nothing but the transient current or peak current. So in this particular current, you have to check till what limit it is there, what is the duration of this inverse current or transient current, then only you can decide which type of fuse you have to select. So we have the slow blow fuse and fast blow fuse. So which type of fuse you have to use? In slow blow fuse you have mega midi fuses. So what are the condition or transient condition you have to take care into the consideration when you are selecting the fuse? Then packaging requirement. So suppose you have different type of fuses. So this type of fuse you have, then blade type of fuse you have, then this type of fuse you have. But your packaging requirement is such, you can see here the packaging is you have to do in a particular space, you do not have much space, then you have to use a smaller fuses. So those things you have to consider into when you are selecting the fuse. You can see here these type of fuses also we are using, and these type of fuses also we are using. Then serviceability. So serviceability, what does it mean? That particular fuse if you have selected, then this particular fuse should be available everywhere. So suppose your fuse requirement came 6.5 and you have selected the 7.5 amps of fuse, right? But this 7 point of fuse amp of fuse you are not getting in the market, then there is no point of selecting the 7.5 amps of fuse. You understand what we are trying to convey here? So you have to select the fuse which is available everywhere. So serviceability should not be an issue. So suppose this particular fuse is blown and everywhere that your dealer is going, and your fuse itself or manufacturer is not supplying that particular fuse, because OEM does not supply this fuse, right? Always the supplier would be there. So for your fuse, you know already that little fuse is the biggest supplier for the fuses. So those things you have to consider when you are selecting the fuse. Then safety requirement, of course, you have to take care into the consideration. Then cost. So suppose when you are selecting the fuse, and the particular fuse is very small, very nice, everything is very good, but the cost is very high, right? So you have one target for the particular wiring harness that you have to meet into that particular cost only, right? So suppose you need you have the target of one particular harness 30k thousand, right? 30,000. But your fuse itself is very costly, right? Then you will not meet the target of this particular harness costing requirement, right? So you have to understand the cost also when you are selecting the fuse. Then what type of fuse you are going to select, blow fuse or slow blow fuse. Then this all these things depends on as I told, like inverse current or the peak current or the transient current. So based on these factors you have to select this. Then fuse rating should be selected with maximum continuous current. So this is already understood. So all these factors you have to consider when you are selecting the fuse. We will see some of the practical example where we are selecting the fuse. Then you will come to know that how to select and what is the mathematical calculation for that. But already I have created series of fuse, how to select the fuse, a series of videos where you will get all the things in detail. I will put all these videos in the comment, and you can check either in comment or description box I will put. So you can check all these three video and you can understand how the short circuit current, inverse current works, because in this video we cannot explain all those things. So let's start with the some of the practical examples. So you have some of the continuous current, suppose the fuel pump. So this is the power, always you get the power of that particular system. So for fuel pump we got the requirement 70 watt. So in this you can have two cases, right? So first case that you are working on 12 volt, and second case you are working on 24 volt, right? So already I have explained you, when you are working on car, then you are working on the 12 volt, then 24 volt you are working in the commercial vehicles, right? CV. So the simple formula whatever we have used earlier also, P is equals to VI. So 70 into 12 is equals to 12 into I. So you can see 70 divided by 12. Then similarly, in this case also, what we will do, give me a moment, P is equals to VI, power would be remain same, right? 70. Then you are working on 24. Then I is equals to 24 into I. Then I is equals to 70 divided by 24. So if you take 70 divided by 24, then it will come around 2.91. If you take this one 70 divided by 12, so it will come around 5.83, right? So this is the condition that you got the current in the particular electrical circuit, the wire in which for which you are going to select the fuse. Earlier also I have told you that we select the fuse for the what, not the device. So as you know that your fuse rating should be like 1.125 to 135% of your current, your continuous current on that particular circuit. So suppose I take one example of 125. So it always depends that in which circuit you are going to use. Some of the OEM go with the 125, some of the OEMs go with the 135 as well. So if I take one example of fuse rating, then what will happen? 1.25 into 5.83, right? So 1.25 into 5.83, will come around 7.25, 287, right? So similarly here also we will see the fuse rating. So 2.91 into 1.25, so it will come around a moment 3.6375, correct? So by in the 12 volt system, the same fuel pump require your 7.28 amps of fuse. And in the case 2, when you are working on the 24 volt of system, the same load require the 3.6375 of fuse, right? But see, as I told you, based on the serviceability point of view, we will not use 7.28, right? That supplier cannot create or manufacture or build that particular rating of fuses. They make mostly in this factor: 5 amps, 10 amps, 15 amps. Then which particular fuse I can select here? 10 amps, right? So for this particular fuel pump of 70 watt in 12 volt system, I need 10 amps of fuse. When it comes to this one, case 2, 24 volt of system, I need the fuse of 5 amps, right? Are you clear about this particular mathematical calculation or not? We will come why we are taking 125% or 135% on this. But as of now, you understand the fuse rating should be 125% of your continuous current. As of now you understand, or I can say in a one more other term, that permanent current in a fuse must always less than the 80% of its rating. That way also you can say. So this is clear, and you understood that the same particular fuel pump, if you are using in the case 1 of 12 volt, then you need 10 amps, but when you are going in the case 2 24 volt, then you are using the 5 amps of fuse. So similarly, for headlight main beam, headlight dip beam, you can understand how to calculate this particular fuse rating. So I hope you are clear that why I am taking this 1.25. So 1.2 1.25 amps of factor in fuse rating. So if you take actually 125%, 125%, what will be there? 125 divided by 100, so 1.25, right? So that's why I directly uh, multiply this 1.25 to this particular current whatever we got from the P is equals to vi. So this is clear, I hope. Now similarly for these components also you can calculate for the heater, indicators, brake lights, right? So one more particular question asked in the fuse rating, how to select in the fuse rating, what is the standard you use for the fuse consideration? So there is a one standard SAE J2077. There are many other standards also which we use for the fuse selection. Can you comment in the comment box what are other standard we use for the fuse selections? When you are selecting the fuse, you have to be consider, or you have to take the consideration of this particular standard. So SAE J2077. So sometimes they ask directly what are the standard you are using during the selection of fuse. So you can say SAE J2077. You can tell other standard also in the comment box. Please let me know what are the other standards there to select the fuse. So I hope this is clear. Now we are moving to the questions. What are the other questions which we need to take? So the first question, 60 watt of headlamps. So as I told you, P is equals to vi. If you are working on the 12 volt system, so 60 is equals to 12 into I. So I is equals to 5 amps, right? This is coming your current in the circuits. This is nothing but the current in the circuit, right? So now what you have to do, you have to find out the fuse rating, right? Fuse rating. So fuse rating 1.25 into continuous current. So if you take 1.25 of 5 amps, so you can say it will come around 6.25, right? So as I told you, So 6.25 you cannot use the fuse. Either you can use 7.5 amps of fuse. So this particular fuse is also available in the market. So some of the vehicle, some of the OEMs use 7.5 amps of fuse also, but most of the OEM goes, when you have the fuse rating above 5 amps, they go with the 10 amps of fuse, because this particular fuse mostly available in all the markets. Now coming to the second question, that is 3.2 kilowatt of motor. So 3.2 kilowatt of motor would be, your power would be 3.2 into 1000. I'm just making into the watts. So 1 second. So 3 watt. Then same formula we will apply, is equals to I. So 3 2000, sorry, 12 into I. So I is equals to, so this particular fuse you can use. So you can see the current is very high. So in this case, you should use always the mega fuses, or and for that, so 2.66 came. Then you have to multiply with 1.25 of factor, right? So if I multiply with 125 factors, so it is coming around 332. Okay, so sometimes what happens in mega fuses or midi fuses, you will see in this particular case that OEM are using 300 amps of fuse itself, or 350 some of the so the reason is like, it is very high current, and we are not taking directly that particular factor. So sometimes in these mega fuses we take the factor of 1.10 also. So if I take the 266 into 1.1, then it will come around 292. So directly OEM are using 300 amps of fuse, because it is a mega fuse, slow blow fuse. So that is also one reason here. So you can go to 300 amps of fuse also, and 350 also, not a problem. Then the other question is, for high beam and low beam, fuse value will be same or different. So as I earlier also told, so if you see the main beam, so main beam is nothing but the high beam. For high beam we have the 200 amps, 200 watt, and for the dip beam is nothing but the low beam. So for that we have the 160 watt of power is required. So you can see by this particular, seeing by this, it is different. But mainly when you have the difference is very low, like 60 and 55, then in this case most of the time we use the 15 amps of fuse. So 60 plus 60, one side, one headlamp is 60, the other headlamp would be 60 also, then total would be 120, right? In 120 watt, if you divide by 12, then it will come around 10 amps the current, and then fuse will be 1.25, so 12.5, then 15 amps. For this also, in this case 110 watt would be there, then you divide by this, then it will come around 9 point something, right? Then in that case also, you will multiply with 1.25 of factor, and then it will come in this range itself. So you can say that for low beam and high beam it is same. But when you have the big difference like this, you can see here, so in that case the fuse rating might be different. Okay, so it depends on the value of the power required with the high beam and low beam. If high beam is taking 100 amps, 100 watt, and low beam is taking 50 watt, then definitely there would be different. But when you have the very less difference, like 60 watt and 55 watt, then there won't be much different in the fuse value. Now coming to the why fuse selection rating is 125% of the rated current. So this is the best question which is asked. So if you see the value on each fuse that indicate in ampere, that current that fuse can support at ambient temperature, right? So whatever fuse rating we are selecting, like 15 amp or suppose 20 amps on that fuse, so it always support on the ambient temperature. But most of the time in our vehicle, fuses often operate at higher temperature. So a derating factor of 10% will be applied. So this is the one thing. So 10% of temperature derating factor. Second thing, in order to avoid any aging phenomena of the fuse element over the time, so another derating factor of 10 ampere we apply. Okay. So by adding all these 10 plus 10, 20% derating factor we are applying. And this is always this particular, you can say why you are not applying 5% or 8%, why you are applying only 10%. So this is done based on the study, right? So in the labs, this is studied and analyzed that 10% is sufficient, not more than like 15% or something. So total is 20%. And that's why some of the OEM varies. As I told you, when you are selecting for this 3.2 kilowatt and you are selecting for slow blow fuse, and I said that 1.1 also you can take, and a factor you can take, or 1.5 also you can take, right? So all these things depends on what type of fuse you are selecting, where you are selecting, and what is the temperature range. But common factor is 125% or 1.25 factors, right? So this factor is coming based on the study. 10% of the derating factor for the higher temperature, and 10% of for the aging factor, that aging phenomena of the fuse. So permanent current in a fuse must always be less than the 80% of its fuse rating. 80% of its fuse rating. What does it mean? The same meaning is same, that either you can go to 125% or 80% of fuse rating. So suppose if your current is 8 amps, then 8 into 1.25, how much it would be? 10 amps, right? So in other way also you will say that would be the same, like 80%, the permanent current is in a fuse must always be less than the 80% of its rating. So this is the reason behind why we are using the 125% of rated current. Then coming to the this particular thing, so 5 amps of fuse is used to protect the combination switch should and that should receive only 3 amps, as you stated. Why? So as I told you, that suppose you are using the fuse, so 3 amps is required in that particular circuit, and you have selected the 3 amps of fuse here, right? Here you have selected the 3 amps of fuse. So what will happen when you are starting your vehicle, or your component is on in the first time? So there would be some transient current, always there would be some transient current or peak current, and suppose it goes beyond 3.3 amps to 3.2 for few millisecond, okay, or 1 second or 2 second. What will happen? That fuse will be blown always, right? Whenever you are switching on the your vehicle, or when you are switching on your particular component. So what will happen? That will nuisance will be created, right? So to avoid that nuisance, we use always this particular factor, 125%, 135%, 150%. Okay. To avoid that nuisance. If you are rating, always fuse whatever current is required in that particular circuit, then this particular nuisance will be created always, that you have to change your fuse every time whenever you are switching on the vehicle, or when you are switching on your component. I hope you got the understanding that why we are following that 125%, why we are taking the higher current, higher fuse rating rather than the same rating what the particular component is required. I hope this particular video will be interesting and you might got the answer of your question. If you still have some confusion or doubt, please comment in the comment box. We will try to answer all those questions, all your queries. Thank you for watching.